All right, welcome everybody. We change this slide.
We can.
So the first thing I want to do before we get started today, so I just want to welcome some new members. I see new faces. So how many new members do we have?
Okay, I'm Peggy Cole. I live down in Southern Chester County, New London Township. This is my fourth year beekeeping, first year in here, although I was a member way back when you met in downtown Westchester, I think.
Okay.
Been around these a while.
Was that an indoor meeting that we?
Oh, yeah, regularly met at, I'm sure so.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever there. That was before I got involved with
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
And you have how many hives?
So I'm restarting this year with 2 hives. I had 2 hives since like beginning of 2020, but I lost them. I'm restarting.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you and welcome.
My name is Gene Morris. We live in West Brandywine, and we've been beekeeping for about a month.
I was waiting for him to say like 20 years.
No bees.
Wait, you don't have bees?
No.
You've been beekeeping for a month, but you don't have bees. Okay, explain that.
We're just getting started.
You just get started. You've been interested for a month.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, and you just joined our club, so welcome.
Yeah.
And have you guys signed up for any of the programs or anything, like the beginner course or the apprentice program or anything like that?
There is 2 bee schools right now through the VA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone's welcome at Ernie's place on
Yeah,
Saturday
he
morning,
just
right?
welcome to Ernie's place. You should go check it out. It's quite a treat. And you can feed the cows and all kinds of stuff. I believe there was one more person that raised her hand. Oh, and yeah.
So I'm a new member. My name's Linda. I don't have any hives, so hopefully you'll still talk to me now. But I did, I volunteer at Jenkins Arboretum, and they have some hives there, and they, in the last couple of years, invited volunteers to participate or learn about the bees. I wasn't able to do it the last 2 years, but I was sort of following what was going on online. Karen Miller, who's the head horticulturist there, does a great job of, she took lots of pictures, lots of emails, so I was sort of trolling the bee group without actually going there. And then this year, I started, physically showing up to the meetings, and it's super cool.
Are you going to be ordering bees? Do you have any on order?
Right now, my plan is to just sort of live vicariously through their hives
That's a great idea.
until I get,
I think that's a great
until
idea.
I understand more about it.
Find out everything that's involved in beekeeping
Right,
before you
but-
get involved.
I usually, when I get a new hobby, I usually
Dive in.
dive right in, so we'll see.
Like you're taking it
I
to for this
really
hobby.
keep telling myself, slow down,
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
Watch some of videos from the meetings.
Oh, God.
Some of my what not to do.
Yeah,
never
no,
have
I wanna take it slow,
Yeah.
but I did participate in the plant, I did get some plants at the plant sale, which was really cool. I'm a big gardener, so that was extra plus. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
You see me now? All right. My name's Bill Wells. I'm from the Euclid Ambulance Corps. I am the Director of Education. As a side note, my full-time job, I'm a high school teacher at TCHS Brandywine, where I teach allied health science. Specifically, I take high school seniors and they go through my program to become an emergency medical technician. And I was asked to come in today to speak to you guys because we are 911. When you call for an emergency, what are the people you're going to get? Okay. My background in EMS, I have been in emergency medical services for 45 years. Actually 46 this year. I've been an EMT since 1980, a paramedic since 1999. So I've been doing that for a long time. I don't know much about bees. I'll be straight up with you, except for one thing, and that is anaphylaxis. We can have an allergic reaction to something. I'm sure at some point everybody in here has had some type of an allergic reaction to something. But anaphylaxis specifically is going to be something that can kill you if it's not taken care of fast enough. So anaphylaxis is the body's release of, okay, I don't want to get too far out. It's how the body fights a foreign invader. Now, the funniest question you got to ask somebody at the beekeeper. Have any of you ever been stung? Today.
I think the better question is somebody not.
Yeah,
stung.
who hasn't been stung? Well, I get the people easy. Yeah.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing. You're obviously sitting here, maybe you've never had, and hope that you didn't have a reaction, an anaphylactic reaction. The problem is we never know when we will have one. You could be going your entire life and never have a reaction, and that next time you get hit is when it hits you. So it's important to recognize these signs and symptoms and what you need to do. It can be a life-threatening reaction. Oh, and by the way, not just bees, hornets, wasps, numerous things can cause it. So it shuts, your body releases histamine. So have you ever heard of Benadryl? Everybody's heard of Benadryl, right? So that's the way to fight this on a minor allergic reaction. But in something like this, it becomes life and death. Why? Your airway starts to close. You start to feel itching really bad, okay? And you got to do something quickly. Well, the first and most important thing you need to do is call 911. Even if you can't speak, call 911. With our enhanced 911 system in Chester County, we should be able to get to you. They should be able to narrow you down within 5 meters. So roughly 17 feet to be able to pick out where you are. And with today's technology, with the smart watches and everything else, I'm sitting in my chair the other night at home and my watch starts to vibrate and I look at it, it goes, fall warning, have you fallen? I'm like, maybe asleep, but I'm in the chair. So, and yes, you can see here on the slide, some foods, peanuts, nut allergies. Surprising fact about that. United States has more nut allergies than anywhere else in the world. And the reason for that is, they posit that the reason for this is due to the fact that we avoid nuts. We avoid giving kids nuts for the fact that we're afraid they might have an allergy to it. That baby formula, okay, you never hear of it having nuts in it. You go to other countries, it all does. So they're being introduced to something. Have you ever heard that, right? Like, I was raised around animals. Okay, I got my flock. I got 20 chickens. I got a couple turkeys. I got 4 dogs. A whole bunch of animals. My kids were raised around them. None of them have allergies. One of their friends come over that have never been around an animal, and the next thing you know, they're having a reaction to it. So they think that might be a reason why.
Bees, it sounds like someone could give you some bees here. Think about it.
I don't got an acre of land.
We'll talk.
One thing's for sure, I live over in West Callan and I see bee boxes everywhere. So, and Amish, they're everywhere. Shellfish, yes. I'm sorry for those of you that have an allergy to shellfish. I personally love my lobster and shrimps and everything else. So, what can we do? Talked about foods. Food is the most common cause of an allergic reaction. Okay? You can see as you go back down, it takes about to the 4th reason till you get to insect venom. But there's many different allergies. And a lot of us, me included, have asthma. I had it when I was in the military because of this crap I worked around. And it's gotten better. I mean, there's a lot of meds to take care of it. But if you've ever had an anaphylactic reaction before, you definitely want to make sure that you're carrying something to help you if it happens again. So one of the things we carry is an EpiPen. Maybe you're familiar with an EpiPen. Interesting fact about an EpiPen. They used to be cheap as hell. And now they're not. To the point where we used to carry on the ambulance, we would carry 2 adults and 2 pediatric ones. Now that is about $700 a head. Okay? Because they realized they had a trademark on it, whatever the business reason. So right now they're running through the FDA and working on getting approved nasal epinephrine. So you've seen the Narcan, have you seen the Narcan units? It's, up the nose. They're working on the same thing for epinephrine. And I hope it gets approved because that'll drive the price down. Because this truly is a life-saving med right here. Now this is a trainer, okay? And it's really easy to use.
Use it on George.
No, no.
I know. If I was gonna need a dose of epinephrine this it'd only make my talk go an extra 20 minutes. We're gonna do a lot faster.
You'll be done in 2 minutes. You'll be flying right through. You'll be like, huh? Okay, next slide, please. So signs and symptoms. We get hives, itching, flushed skin, starting to feel woozy, right? You're gonna have some respiratory problems, some breathing problems. It starts by the wheezing, right? That noise. That's constriction of the bronchioles in the lungs. And then what we see here is the blood pressure starts to drop. Why? So your body, what it's doing is it's releasing histamine into it. And it's doing its best to counteract this foreign thing that's gotten in, but it overdoes it. And it causes our body to flush. Everything just goes like flushing a toilet. So we get dizzy, lightheaded. We might vomit, diarrhea, and definitely the last one. The first sign of somebody having an issue, other than the fact that they start to look like, and I always use this as a comparison for those of us that remember the movie Willy Wonka. Do you remember Violet? Yeah. And what color did she turn? Purple, blue, right? Cyanotic. That's it. Now you're not going to blow up like she did. That was a blueberry there, but that's the best way I could describe it. We start to see it around the lips, fingernail beds, mucosal in the mouth, people with different skin tones, okay? Darker skin, same thing. Hands, fingernail beds around the mouth, in the ears, and around the eyes. You'll start to see them turn blue. This is a true medical emergency. What do you do if you don't have epi? Easy, call 911. Get somewhere where, we can get to them. But first and foremost, I think the most important thing to do is get them out of the area where they got stung. Is that me? That's my wife and that dog. Sorry. It's that Ring video doorbell thingy. Ring, oh boy. But is to get them and drag them if you can. If you can't, understand. I guess, what do you use to fight the bees? Smoke, right? The smoke thingies. At least if I can remember my Boy Scout days, right? Next slide, please. So call 911, EpiPen if available. So the EpiPen's easy. The way to do this is blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. That's the idiom. Blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. We pop off the safety and lateral thigh. In the lateral thigh, you're just going to take it, ram it in, hold it for 15 seconds, and then pull it straight out. There's a needle. Oh, by the way, it's a trainer. Give myself that.
Is that a needle?
So the needle would be encased in here.
It is a needle. I'm just gonna die on the spot.
You know what? You'll never see the needle.
I will feel it.
You'll feel it.
Could be done. Anaphylaxis.
And then this becomes something that you want to give to EMS. Now,
That's correct.
they come in packs of 2 for a reason. A lot of times, 1 may not be enough. Okay? You hit the person with 1, again, lateral thigh, hold it in there for 15 seconds, pull it straight out. Because if you come up on an angle, you can snap the needle off.
That's all good.
This is their sign. Just to let you know, I've heard it.
Okay. So. Yes,
When you, if you're the person giving the epinephrine, you do remember the time that you gave the epinephrine, so you give it to the EMTs?
it would be a good idea, absolutely. And at a minimum, you need to wait 5 minutes before you hit them with the second one, if they need it. They should start to feel immediate relief. Okay, but if it starts to get to the point where it's like, it's not feeling right, you can always give them a second one. Just remember, epinephrine, your body makes it naturally. We call it adrenaline. That's what it is. It's an adrenaline rush. Same thing you get when you're going over to the top of the roller coaster. And you're going, why am I doing this? That's adrenaline. Or jumping out of the airplane, or in my case, helicopters. That's it. All right.
Sorry.
Yes.
How long will those pens last? I mean,
Once they're in the system?
excuse me,
Oh,
the EpiPens, how long will they last on the shelf?
the shelf life is maybe a year.
Okay, is it good to keep them in the car, in the glove box kind of thing? I know it gets hot in the cars, I don't know if they.
Yeah, no, you don't have to keep them refrigerated, just room temperature. But you're right, if you keep it in a glove box,
That's hot.
it will get hot. But where would you, purse, absolutely, purses. In my case, I would just carry it in my pocket, yeah.
Question. So my daughter used to need one and she outgrew her allergy.
Yeah.
But I still have the EpiPen and I've kept it. So
Yeah.
it's expired. But if I was in an emergency situation, I could use it on somebody.
Depends on how old it is.
Okay.
So
It's like 2 years old now.
2 years old, and
I feel like it would be better than nothing. Is that not
it would be
the
better
case?
than nothing, but it may not work. It may or may not work, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, pediatric dosing
Yeah.
is 0.15 milligrams as opposed to 0.3,
Yeah.
which is an adult. So,
But maybe on my kids it could work.
on a kid, yeah, but getting it replaced might be the better thing.
Spending another $700.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not the allergy anymore, so I don't think that would.
Yeah, so, and again, it depends on your insurance. I mean, the VA will just give you it. But, yeah, I wouldn't hold on to it too much longer. Because, okay, so medication, just real quick, pharmacodynamics. Medication comes up, it peaks. Now, just because this says expires today, doesn't mean it's expired. But what happens is they can't guarantee the efficacy, the action of the drug. So it starts to go down over time. So that's the issue you run into. You're a year over that, so it might have a little bit of strength left in it. But it's better than nothing. Yeah.
Say, we use an EpiPen, patients feeling better, more normal. Do we still need to call an ambulance or should we?
You should have called the ambulance already, and absolutely they should go get checked out. They should always go get checked out. And I know people are iffy about ambulances, but the fact of the matter is, we essentially have a mobile emergency room. So that we can put somebody back there, and if they start to have issues, as a paramedic, I can do a lot of stuff back there. I can intubate them, I can put them on a cardiac monitor, I know how to read EKGs. I've got about 42 different medications I can give if I have to. And as opposed to trying to put them in your car and drive them to the closest ER. As we know now, you might be driving a while, especially if you live out where I do. Sitting in my house the other day, I'm looking at it, Chester County's 23 or 22 miles, Ephrata's 23, Paoli's 24. I couldn't believe it was easier for me to get to Ephrata. But we've got, and what if that person starts to tank while you're in the car? Now you're trying to figure out what to do. Call an ambulance. Yes, sir.
Seems to me it's a good idea for all of us to pay our yearly dues to the ambulance.
Well, I guess, I
'Cause
mean.
then otherwise, I've heard the fees can be really high.
So, they can be depending on that individual station. They vary. I mean, I know there's, some places where it's tax supported or it's becoming tax supported. Typically your ambulance companies are not. It's through billing, third-party billing with, your insurance. And then you can always, knock on wood, I'm pretty sure when I say every ambulance company is a nonprofit. So setting up payment plans and stuff. I ran Good Fellowship for 28 years. I was the executive director there. And if somebody had a financial hardship, we would write it off. I mean, it depends on you. If you have Medicare, Medicare Part B usually covers it. And any type of government plan, they usually have to take that and write it off. So, but at the time it happens and your life's involved, big white house, mow the lawn. Am I worried about the bill or do I want to live? But depends on where you are too. Different states, different rules. Delaware, it's all tax based, so you don't get a bill. All right, where was I? CPR. CPR. Does everybody have a CPR card? You look familiar. Why are you looking familiar to me?
Euclid?
Yeah.
I'm the reason why you're here.
Yeah, he's the one that got you here.
No, I.
Damon.
Huh?
Damon.
Damon, yes. I suck at names. I'm sorry. He's on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the board members. Okay, so. Thanks, Damon. That's it. Thank you. CPR if necessary. If you don't have a CPR card, right? I know Euclid, we offer classes every month. The easiest thing to remember is you can always do hands-only CPR, right? It's easy to do. If you don't want to blow in somebody's mouth, my rule of thumb is, the only mouths I blow in are the ones I already blow in. So let's see, I kiss my wife. Maybe I would for my kids. Much past that, forget about it. Because back when I started doing this, that's all we did was mouth to mouth and too many free meals. Okay, so next slide, please. I'm way over my time.
Sorry, you're just cutting into George's time.
Okay, so yeah, here we go. If you do have an allergy on this slide, that bottom one's important. Get a medical alert bracelet that just says anaphylaxis or allergic to bee stings or something like that. Something that allows us as EMS providers to quickly identify what the problem might be. Because the sooner we can do that, like I'm a diabetic, right? So I have one that I carry in my wallet. It says, bright letters, I am a diabetic. So if I'm laying on the ground, somebody can take a look, cops will get in there, pull it out, look at it, and go, hey, he's a diabetic, guys, and give me some sugar, okay? So it's not a bad idea to do that. I had one student 2 years ago that actually had a tattoo inside her wrist, and it said, I am a type 1 diabetic, because once you're type 1, you have it for life. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. If you're gonna paint your body, put something useful. Next slide.
I got a quick one for you. Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the Apple iPhone, sometimes they have you put in like ice contacts and some health information there in case something goes wrong. Do you guys check that?
We can.
I think there's supposed to be a way like they put it somewhere that you can access without having the passcodes. I just never.
I honestly, the younger providers most probably know how to do that. I still have a problem using my thumbs to text.
I could get a 12-year-old.
Yeah, okay.
My 16-year-old son can do it.
Okay, yeah, I guess there's like an emergency.
Yes, if you don't have an EpiPen, would you recommend that before the guy passes out?
Good question. Great question. The question was, do you recommend taking Benadryl before the guy passes out? Okay, so here's the problem with Benadryl. If it's a slight reaction, sure. The problem is Benadryl is going to take about 30 minutes. At which point you could be dead. The reason being is it's called a third pass drug. Whenever you take a drug and you swallow it, it's got to go through your stomach, broken down, and it's got to get all the way to the liver, process the liver to go out to the bloodstream. So it takes 30 minutes for any drug to get into your body. Now, please keep in mind, that's not like nitro where you put it under your tongue and it melts. That's instantaneous into the bloodstream. But any medication, so Tylenol, Benadryl, any pills, I take 27. I gave up counting. But it takes about that long to get into your body. I've had patients that have done that. I get there and they're like, we took Benadryl. My first question, how long ago? 20 minutes. Okay, so I know I've got a little bit of time till it kicks in, but it limits how much I'm going to give them. Yes, ma'am.
What about liquid Benadryl swished around the mouth? Would some of that begin to absorb through the mucous membranes in the mouth a little faster?
It could a little bit faster, but usually that's not as strong as strength. Well, your typical dosing is 25 milligrams. So, but it still has to go down into the stomach, and everything's got to get to the liver. That's the problem. And unfortunately, your liver can only process one thing at a time. Okay? We don't have any college students here. Just checking. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have the medical alert bracelet, but I also have it on my USB.
Oh, cool. That's really good.
But then when you go to a hospital, they don't want to use the USB.
Why? Because
I'm not plugging
a
your
virus
USB device in my computer.
Yeah.
It's working on something.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm like you. I carry a USB, but I know in our ambulances we have computers in the front that we can plug into. If that's a way of reading it, a lot of iPads and all these other things we're carrying now. But your medical alert is the most important thing. And oh my gosh, one of the best things people do is give us a typed out list of their medical history. Years ago, I don't know if Euclid did it. Years ago, we had this program called Vial of Life, and it would go in the refrigerator. And we would go in and open the refrigerator. There'd be a sign on it that says Vial of Life on the outside. We would open up and grab the little vial, and inside was your medical history and all your meds and allergies. It's the greatest thing ever. Really helps out. Yes?
One other question.
Yes, sir.
I use something called Apis mellifica, which is a homeopathic
Is
medicine.
that I just bought that. It's by Byron or something like
Yeah,
that. Byron.
Byron. It's made in France, and I learned about it from other beekeepers who were taking it. Because I asked the guy one day what he takes, and he says, I swell up like a balloon when I get stung.
Right.
He says, I carry a little vial of the Apis mellifica. They're little candies, and they're made from a very small dosage of bee venom.
Okay.
And he'll put 5 of these little things under his tongue.
Yep.
And he said then he just operates as usual, and he gets no swelling.
Okay. So what he's doing is, and this has been documented with snake, people that deal with snakes all the time, is a gradual, slow amount of venom into the body. What it does is it's kind of like getting a vaccination, giving you a little bit of something so your body creates a protection from it. Again, going sublingual, but I've never heard of that, but I have heard of that type of a process where people will do that to desensitize their body. Okay, let me, if we can, I'll finish up the questions at the end. Oh, no, please, go ahead. Let's take a look at heat stroke, okay? This is the next thing. Heat stroke is the worst thing you can get. You're gonna possibly get heat cramps first, and then heat exhaustion. Heat stroke is that prolonged exposure. Your body temperature is gonna be up above 104 degrees. You're literally cooking off your brain. Never a good thing, okay? And again, it can damage your brain. heart, and kidneys. Where do we see a lot of heat strokes? On like 100+ degree days, humidity's high, and somebody decides they gotta go out and run, what is that? 5K, 10K, 25. My brother, he's an Ironman. Yeah. What are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing 26 miles. I'm like, have fun, bye. He's like, you wanna come? Sure, I'll fly in the car. I'll have the air conditioning. But seriously, so how do we know we're having a heat stroke event? The key sign, the heat stroke, if you could flip that, please. You see this algorithm as it comes down and different things, all right, that can cause this to be an issue. As we see this, prolonged, strenuous exercise outside, you have risk factors. What would they be? Young children and elderly. Okay, these are two groups that always we're cautious about.
We have no elderly here.
I don't see anybody told to me. Chronic illnesses, again, high blood pressure, heart conditions, diabetes, lack of air conditioning, and medications. If you're on hypertension medications, that's something to be careful of, because those meds are designed to control your blood pressure, and sometimes you need your blood pressure to go high. But if you're taking those meds, it won't allow it to happen, and that can have a detrimental effect. So the suits you guys are in, I understand, are pretty hot, right? I'll see you're hot and raise you a hazmat suit. No? Oh, okay, well, I just next slide, please. So when we look at this, altered mental state starts to happen. This next one is the big one. Hot, dry skin. Now you see profuse sweating. If you have profuse sweating, that's heat exhaustion. Heat stroke is when your body can no longer produce sweat. It has all evaporated, because the reason your body produces sweat is to cool it down. And when you no longer can produce sweat, or you become so hot that it immediately evaporates, you can't cool the body down. All right? This is where it becomes deadly. And it's rare. We don't get a lot of this. Where we saw a lot of heat exhaustion and heat strokes? Back with the kids in the summertime playing football, and before they had such a thing as a red flag day, or they had to take mandatory water breaks. When I was playing football, it didn't matter how hot it was, we were out there playing till somebody would puke or fall out. They'd put you under a shade tree, 20 minutes later, you're back doing it again. And that's why I am the way I am. No, but, or at least that's what my wife would say. Have you ever had a concussion? I don't remember. So, nausea and vomiting, rapid heartbeat, seizures, and coma. Obviously, by the time you get to seizures or coma, not good. Again, call the ambulance. We can put them in the back. What are we going to do? Well, from an ambulance perspective, we're going to get them into somewhere cool. What can you do? Well, if you notice this, ice packs or cold towels. Where? Under the neck, in the armpits, in the groin. Why do we pick these places? That's where blood flows closest to the skin. Have you ever, if you can remember when you were a kid and you would get sick, my mom was classic for this. The wet washcloth on the back of the neck, and it would just make you feel better as you're praying to the porcelain god. As you're there, and it would help. Well, this is where you can cool somebody down till advanced care gets there. When I get there as a paramedic, I'm going to start an IV line, and I'm going to give you fluid. Because odds are you're dehydrated, you need fluid. And we can start to regulate your body temperature. And lower it slowly. You don't want to lower it too fast. Okay? So don't throw this person in a pool. For that matter, they'd be doing the floppy chicken in there, and it wouldn't look good. Call 911, move to a cooler environment, get their clothes off, okay? Cool water to the skin, fan them, don't give fluids if they're unconscious. Okay? I teach my EMT students. The only thing an unconscious person gets in their mouth is an airway. You don't have those. We do. Other than that, don't put anything in their mouth. You just want to make sure, and diabetics, if you're out there, watch the heat, because we can really start to drive our blood sugar down if we're out working in extreme heat. So you want to keep an eye on your blood sugar, okay? Matter of fact, my suggestion would be before I go out in the heat to do something, pack on some carbs. Yes, I just told you to pack on carbs. Okay, eat a bagel. Something that's going to give you some energy, all right? Because otherwise you can burn right through a chocolate bar. Next slide, please. Stay hydrated. This is how we can prevent it. Avoid the strenuous. If you can go out and take care of the bees in the morning when it's cooler, like it was this morning. Oh my God, it was beautiful. Excuse me?
Too cold to work on the bees. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it was 45. That's not cold.
That's too cold.
Oh, is it? All right. I'll take your word for it. What do I know? My chicken better be producing. Wear loose, light clothing, use fans, air conditioning, and acclimatize. That's why a lot of seniors will go to senior centers. They used to go to the mall. That thing over there that's going to get torn down soon was a great place to go in the summer because they had air conditioning. Not anymore. Okay. Is that it? No, should be another slide, please. Okay, so just to recap. Anaphylaxis, epinephrine pen, EpiPen. Heat stroke, get them cool. Both are considered life-threatening. Okay, sir? It took a lot longer. Are there any other questions? And I really do appreciate your time, and thank you very much for having me come out. It's important to be aware of this, especially with the summer coming, and I guess bees are going to start getting active, right? Yeah, when the trout swims, the bees are active. So, all right, I don't have anything else for you. Any final questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just one thing. You happen to know there's a drug called Neffy, which is a nasal epinephrine.
Oh, I'm happy to know. I don't have a need.
Is it approved?
Oh, yeah, you can get it now.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, note to self. What's it called again?
Neffy. Neffy.
I happen to be on the state committee for our
Gotta get it on the ambulance.
protocols. I'll be meeting with them again next week, so I'll bring that up. Yes, sir.
Just an FYI for everyone, there is an epinephrine that's approved for asthmatics, and you can buy it over the counter, but it really doesn't work for anaphylaxis. You know this, I'm sure it's
Neosynephrine?
Primatene.
Primatene mist, yes. Primatene mist. Matter of fact, there for a while they quit selling it.
Yeah, because of the what was with it, the aerosol.
Aerosol, yeah, the propellant, yeah. So yeah, if you do have the allergy, talk to your doctor, or you may already have the pen. Don't hold on to them too much longer. And if you need to get rid of it, it's a sharp. Just what would be a good? Oh, you drop it off the ambulance. We've got sharps containers there. We can take care of them. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just a comment for the room. Your GP will likely give you an EpiPen prescription if you ask, as a beekeeper or aspiring beekeeper.
Yeah, they do.
Like even without previous history.
Right.
Well, there you go.
That's true.
Hey, better to be pre-armed. And as long as you got decent insurance.
I have it because of
And if you don't, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, you know what? I can tell you this. GoodRx. Anybody use GoodRx?
Yeah.
I use it, and I've got great insurance. Because I'll tell you what, you can really get some decent deals on there. And another thing you can do too, FYI, is reach out to the manufacturer to get a manufacturer's coupon. Yeah, whoever would have thought in your life you'd go coupon shopping for drugs? But hey, you know, might work. All right.
Thank
I'm
you,
good.
sir.
George, thank you for serving. No, I hope not to see any of you. Well, I'll see him again.
You'll see Damon.
I want to thank Bill for making George sit there for 40 minutes and see what it's like.
Sorry if I took you long.
No, that's good.
Thanks for
Thanks,
service.
Bill.
Appreciate it.
Or your local ambulance group.
Yeah, support your ambulance and don't mess with anaphylaxis. You know, there's three types of reactions. There's four types of reactions you can get when you get stung, right? You can get no reaction, which is me, because I've been stung a billion times. You can get a very local reaction, right, where you can swell up a little bit at the site, which is normal. You can get a large local reaction. This is where people get confused, right? So they swell up their whole arm and then they think they have anaphylaxis. You don't. You basically have a large local reaction. And that's not at risk for anaphylaxis. And then you could have what Bill just described, which is the systemic symptoms, which is anaphylaxis. We had somebody from Hopkins, I think that's on somewhere, isn't it? The Hopkins talk. This was awesome because it was practical, but we also had a guy from Hopkins a year ago go into all the details of anaphylaxis, which I think is on the CCBA education channel. So if you want to get more into the medical side of what the different reactions are, I'd highly recommend it. It's excellent. 5 minutes to fly high. I'm flying high this morning.
You only have 2 now.
I know. I thank you for the picture. Just really quick thank you to a couple of people. A couple of people have done amazing work in the last month. Sheena and her plant crew. Leela's here. I'm here. Any other plant people here? Where are our plant people? Did an incredible job once again for putting the plants together and thousands of dollars worth of plants. So thank you, Tina and Leela. This year we did do some things for us to eat, some vegetables and things, herbs and things like that. So hopefully that was appreciated too. But thank you. The second to Mark and Mark's crew. I know Mark has a crew that's doing beginner education around all over the place at Sugartown, at Cheslin, at Bondsville, and soon to be here. You know, Mark and his crew. I don't know if any of your crew's here today.
Janet's here.
Janet's here.
You're on the crew. Yeah.
Again, Mark, thank you.
Yeah.
Big round of applause to Mark and his crew for doing. Russ is in the back. Russ is doing our apprentice course this year. So if you signed up for the apprentice program, Russ has paired you with a teacher, hopefully, and hopefully that's working. And thank Russ for taking that on. That's not my strength. I don't know what it is, but administration of anything is not my strength. So thank you, Russ. And of course, Damon and Mark and all the people that do the community engagement. I know those requests continue to pile in, and they are always looking for help in order to deliver that. So again, I know I'm missing some people. April, right? April has volunteered to help us with not April.
No, I'm just shocked that this makes the cut. Yes.
Yeah, no, it all makes the cut. If you're doing something, you make the cut here, believe me. So April's so we're doing a website refresh on the whole website, and we've hired a third party a company that actually knows what they're doing with website to help us with that. But we needed someone internally to sort of take that on, since once they make the changes, we need to maintain them. And April and her husband I think it's her husband, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, whoever this guy is that you bring.
Backing up, George.
It's going to help us maintain that. So, and then the Queen team's out there making queens, and the grant program reviewed grants, and Patrick brought food. I mean,
Newsletter
to the newsletter, Damon to Damon. You get a shirt. So you get the flavor of what's going on. If you're not part of what's going on,
the newsletter came out today, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
next, if I forgot anyone, I apologize. But thank you all for your efforts to run this program, and we highlighted some of the people on that lead. So moving on, I get my 10 minutes. I'm going to use it all on keeping bees alive. Okay, as you've heard, this is May. What is May? May is honey month, basically, right? So the month of May is when all the trees bloom, basically. So between when the trees start, the cherry trees, the apple trees go into right now we have the black locust trees, and then we'll have the black gum trees, and then we'll have linden trees, and then we'll have sourwood trees. So pretty much from the end of April to the second week of June is when the trees are blooming. And most of the honey that we make in this area is from tree blooms and not flower. on the ground, right? Everyone, and people don't know that, you know, when you talk to someone about your beekeeping, most of the honey's made by trees, not by wildflowers. So when we're knocking down a tree, when you knock down a tree, right, if a tree's blooming, that's the equivalent of 2 acres of flowers. So 1 tree is equal to 2 acres of clover. So plant trees, you know, and don't let people knock down trees. Trees are important, right? So we got to keep our trees going, and most of the honey comes from trees. If you look at hive weights, I know Keith's not here because Keith always disagrees with me, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I'd say it if he was here because we've had this discussion. If you look at hive weights generally go up only in May and early June. That's the only time where the amount of nectar coming in exceeds the amount of nectar being used by that hive, right? So the weight gain of a hive is really only happening basically from the end of April through the beginning of June. This is when they're putting on all their all their weight. Now, how much do the bees put on? The bees will put on as much honey as you give them space to put on, right? So bees will fill the cavity that you give them. Now, with that said, you can't expect a colony this big to fill a cavity that big. It's not going to work. But generally, if you super this time of year, they will fill it, right? So if you want to make, not only do this if you want honey, extra honey, right? Bees are okay with overwintering on between, I'm going to say it, and I know people aren't going to agree, about 40 pounds of honey in this area. You can get an average size colony through the winter on 40 pounds of honey, right? Which is basically 1 medium super, right? Or a deep and a medium. It's plenty of honey to get them through the winter. If you only want 5 pounds of honey for yourself, don't put 3 supers on your hive, you know, because why? Honestly, the bees don't need it. What?
They'll fill it.
They'll fill it.
Yeah.
You know, if your colony's strong, they'll fill it, but don't ask them to do all that work if you're not going to use it, because it's going to be too much. In my opinion, it's too much space for the winter. So ask yourself, how much honey do I want? And now's the time to super it, right? Now's the time to make your hive bigger. Now, if you're a new beekeeper this year and you've just started beekeeping, don't expect to get much honey, right? This year, because A, you have a new colony, B, you're probably asking the bees to dry out all the wax in the hive, and there's just not going to be a lot left. There may be a frame or two for you, but there's not going to be a lot. But this is honey month.
Another point on that, if you've gotten a package or you've gotten a new nuke and you're feeding, and you then take a frame of honey, it's not honey, it's sugar water.
The other thing you got to realize is that the bees will create a honey dome in your hive. So at some point they're going to create this honey dome, which is you know, it's brood, it's pollen, it's brood, nectar, pollen, and then this cap of honey. And somewhere in your hive they're going to create this cap of honey, and they're not going to work above it, right? So if you want to make a bunch of honey, you've got to always know where that honey dome is and put extra supers on below that honey dome. Because if you put it on above the honey dome, they're just going to ignore it. They're not going to work above it for the most part. Again, if you want bees to work another box that you put on your hive, the best way, now this isn't always, like if you put an empty box in a hive that has a bunch of plastic foundation in it, they're likely going to ignore it for the most part. Because why, right? Like, okay, I know, you know what you want them. You want them to come up, you want them to draw a comb, you want them to fill it with honey. Well, it's a box of plastic for them. They're just going to say, what, you know, and generally ignore it. So if you can put brood, if you can move brood up from the lower to the upper part of the hive, they will always work a box if there's brood in it. Now, granted, if your brood is deep and you have a medium, you may not be able to bring a deep frame up into the medium frame, right? If you could bring a frame if you have a box of empty frames, so you could draw a comb up, at least a frame of comb that has the wax on it, has the honey in it, they will work it more. If you just put a blank box on a hive with nothing else in there, they may ignore it. So just remember that. Like if you're like, I'm putting on supers and they're not working it, they're the 2 things I think of right away. One is, did I put it above the honey dome? Question 1. Question 2, is it a box full of plastic? And they say, what the heck are you, I'm not interested in a box full of plastic. And question number 3 is, you don't have enough bees, right? You may not have enough bees, right? Because if you have 4 frames of bees and 3 boxes of supers on your hive, we have some hardworking bees in Chester County, but that's a little bit much. So anyway, so it's honey month. So collect your honey now. You can collect honey all year round. It's just a matter of this is the best time to do it. What are the bees? So there's 4 things that when you go into your hive, right? You've heard this before: bees, brood, food, disease. Bees, brood, food, disease. Every time you go into a hive, in my mind, when you close up that hive, you should have understanding of those 4 things. What's going on in those 4 things? And as a beekeeper, is there anything that you need to do to optimize that hive to be productive and to survive? Because ultimately, they're the things you want your hives to do. You want your hives to be productive, and you want your hives to survive. So, what are bees doing right now? Swarming. So bees generally want to swarm. The bigger your colony is, the more likely it is to swarm. The bigger it is coming out of winter, the more likely it is to swarm. And this is what bees generally do. It is a lot of work to prevent swarming, honestly. And can you 100% prevent swarming? No, but you can decrease your swarming if you're into it. But prevention of swarming this time of year, and swarming is generally when the peak nectar flow is on. So swarming basically goes from middle to end of April through the first week of June. Once the summer, and definitely by the time the summer solstice hits, June 21st, they're generally done swarming. I generally say in this area, now every year is different, usually the first week of June. If you can get your bees through the first week of June without swarming, they're unlikely to swarm. So bees want to swarm. How do you know if your hive swarmed? It's queenless. So if you mark queen, you go in there, there's no queen, right? The other clue is that you have more brood than bees. So you go into your hive, you have all this brood, and your bee population doesn't cover all the frames of brood. More than likely, it's swarm. What people don't realize is that, anyway, they don't realize a lot, and I don't realize a lot either. But hives that swarm are big, and sometimes if they don't throw off after swarms, you still have a lot of bees in the hive. But there's no queen, and there's no young brood, right? So when you look at your brood, it's all, you don't see any eggs, you don't see any young larvae, you just basically see cat brood and that hive swarmed, right? So that's what bees want to do this time of year. They want to swarm. Most hives that are overwintered, that aren't managed weekly, in my mind, will swarm. And that's not a bad thing, right? Most hives that swarm will requeen themselves in enough time and will be okay. But you've just thrown off a swarm that needs to land somewhere, and you have a 15% chance of that hive not requeening itself. So at some point you may have an issue. Not today, but at some point.
So before a swarm goes out, the queen reduces in size. So she can fly.
The queen of the size, the queen is
I'm
lighter.
not sure I could look at a queen and tell this queen is now getting prepared to swarm. Or could I tell, I'm not sure I could tell the difference between that and a virgin queen.
You wouldn't be checking the queen, you'd be checking the swarm cells.
Now when you, so sure, one of the signs that is swarm cells. So, you have swarm cups that are on the bottom. All hives make swarm cups. That's normal. That doesn't mean they're going to swarm. Then you have swarm cups that are charged, right? So you have cups that have an egg or a larvae in it and aren't capped, but that's definitely a sign that the hive's looking to take off. And then you have swarm cells that are capped. Once they're capped, the queen is either gone or going to be gone at that point. And there's different strategies of what to do based on what you find, right? So if you see cups do nothing, if you see swarm cells that aren't capped, you can cut them out. If you see swarm cells that are capped, you can basically assume that hive's left or is going to leave. With that said, I've done this. Not that I've done this enough. I've done this too much. I personally think when you look at a queen, a mated queen that's getting ready to leave, she gets a little flighty. Like the way she moves on the cone, the way she flaps her wings. When you try to get her, she's not quite the size of a virgin, but she starts to act like a virgin again because she's losing weight and getting prepared to take off. So
it seems like it'd be hard to tell the difference.
But I'm not blind because you're looking at the whole hive. You say, oh, okay, I see cat swells. There's a queen there. But anyway, the bees this time of year want to swarm. So if you're not in your hive weekly, you're likely to end up having your hive swarm, honestly. Again, it's not the end of the world. Brood. A hive should always have, any time of the year except for winter, your hive should always have the 3 stages of brood in them. You should always see egg, you should always see larvae, you should always see cat brood, right? This time of year, you're very likely to go into your hive and not see eggs and not see larvae. Why? It's swarmed, right? The queen stops laying, the queen takes off. So you go into your hive and you don't see the queen, you don't see eggs, you don't see larvae. You may not even see the swarm cells because the swarm cells may have already emerged and they've taken down the swarm cell pretty quickly. So you may not even see evidence that the hive is swarmed. But more than likely, if you don't have eggs and larvae this time of year, your hive has swarmed.
Or it has beetles like that.
There's other reasons, but more than likely your hive has swarmed. Will your hive requeen itself? Probably, yes. You need patience though, okay? This is the most common time of year, well, going into it, where people say, my hive is queenless, I need a queen. And Charlie and the queen team will sell you a queen that will go into that hive and it will get killed. Because your hive has a queen in it. Now, I generally say, now this takes a lot of patience, and I'm not a patient person. You should wait. So if you go into your hive today, you go in and you say, I have cat brood, no eggs, no larvae. It looks like it's swarmed. I don't see a virgin. What do? I generally let all the cat brood emerge and then wait a week and then go in and inspect. At that point, you should see evidence of a laying queen again. Now that's hard to know when, but generally the brood should be all hatched out plus 1 week before you truly think you're queenless. So if you go into your hive and you see a little bit of scattered cat brood and you're queenless, don't get a queen. Go back in a week, recheck it, and if in that week after all that brood has emerged, you're still queenless, you still see no evidence of queen, then you may be looking around for a queen, okay? Just be patient, with swarming. Yes, Paul?
One hint I found is that, I use the green drum cone.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a frame of that in there, when the new queen comes, sometimes she preferentially lays eggs there first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing to have in hive anyway. It's a good place to.
And some people talk about leaving if you go into a queenless hive, you'll see that the bees will leave that area where the brood nest is open. They'll polish the cells, they'll leave it open. And that's always a good sign that they expect a queen to come, or they're prepping an area for a queen to come in and lay. If you go into a hive and all your frames in your brood nest are backfilled with nectar, that's more of a concerning sign that you may be queenless, So if you see that nice open space in the brood frames where 2 or 3 frames have that cleared cells where you don't see the eggs and larvae, but they may lay, that's a good sign. Be patient, you know what I mean? Generally, you're not going to turn into a laying worker until about 3 weeks after your broodless. So you have a little bit of time to wait before you throw in a queen to that situation. So brood, a lot of hives are queenless. The most common reason why you're queenless now is because you are swarmed. No, go back. I'm not done. I got my time. I'm filling time with highly important information right now. You generally this time of month, you don't need to worry about food, right? For the most part, there's plenty of pollen, plenty of nectar coming into your hive. The only time where you have to worry about food, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is if you start to make splits, right? If you start to make splits and you start to split up your colony into smaller colonies, don't forget that colony that when you make a split always needs 2 frames of food. Otherwise, it's going to run out of food. And the last thing that is disease, bees, brood, food, disease. Generally, the bees look pretty healthy right now for the most part. I feel like the brood looks well, the bees look good, everything looks good. But now is when your mite levels start to creep up a little bit potentially. Especially if you got a nuke or a package from down south, and that package or nuke may have been earlier started in the season. It doesn't hurt to start checking your mite levels in May. So you really, again, we'll probably talk more about mites at another meeting, but in the ideal world, I will start looking at my hives in May with your mite levels, and if you're not doing mite levels on your hive, you probably should be, honestly. If you're a backyard beekeeper and you have 1 apiary in your backyard and you have fewer than 5 hives, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be doing mite levels, honestly, on your hive. And we can get into that later, but if you don't have a mite checker, you should get a mite checker. If you don't know how to do a mite level, you should learn. May is when you start checking your mites. Next. So what am I doing in May, besides trying to survive? It's a tough, this is the busiest month of the year for beekeeping, right? Because there's a lot going on. You're trying to get supers on, you're trying to prevent your hives from swarming. You're trying to make splits. I really think weekly inspections. Now, there's ways to beekeep where you don't need weekly inspections, for sure. There's more hands-off methods generally, but if you want to sort of prevent swarming, I think weekly inspections are key right now until early June. We talked about adding honey supers. And we talked about swarm control, whether or not that's brood nest expansion, cut out or open swarm cells, or a split. And things to consider, I talked about checking your mite counts. I like making splits the end of May, the beginning of June. I think it's a good time to make splits. We'll go into that more later. And don't be afraid, even if you're a new beekeeper and you're not feeding sugar water, if your hives are small, don't be afraid to pull 2 frames of honey and extract. You know what I mean? Like this time of year, if you have 2 outside frames that are capped and they're honey, and you want to take a little bit for yourself, go ahead. You know, take a couple pounds. Your bees are going to recover. They're not going to starve this time of year. You know, enjoy some honey if you want. You don't have to have a full super of honey to take a couple frames out and extract them or get some honey out of it. Enjoy the honey. That's May. That's all I got.
All
right. How did I do? Oh, good.
That's a question.
Oh, come on. I got 15 more minutes. I was moving today.
So the growing season in terms of gardening, it seems like it's been delayed. Like I put my garden in as early as March, right? We couldn't do it in April. It was cold. Gardens are going in May. Is the beet season potentially going to be shifted to go slightly later? Like is
I think it's. I mean, the black locust trees are blue. I always say the black locust is the first week of May. It's the first week of May, and you see the black locust in bloom. So I think overall, I think it started later this year a little bit, but I think it's caught up now. And somebody knows growing degree days, right? I'm sure the growing degree days are
up to like the 30-year average.
Are average at this point. So I think right now it all depends on how many days of rain we get, right? You know, I mean, all beekeepers honey producing beekeepers, right? Honey producing beekeepers grown when it rains the first week of May, right? Because, you know, black locust season is this is peak nectar flow right now, the first and second week of May. So when it's raining outside and the rain is just washing the nectar out of the trees and the bees are in the hives, we're just like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to make the amount of honey I need to make this year. Tough luck. Sorry. The bees will be okay.
Tulip poplar fans now.
Tulip poplars bloom. It follows black locust. So is it bloom in your area? Tulip poplar.
so I was asking
Tulip poplar is the best honey out there. It really is. I have 1 yard in Delaware that makes tulip poplar honey most years. And the way you know you make tulip poplar honey, anyone know?
It's green.
It's not green. Sorry, it's red. So tulip poplar honey is a reddish color. So usually the George is disagreeing with the chairman. I should listen. But usually the spring honey is light. Tulip poplar honey has a reddish tint to it, and it never crystallizes. So if you extract tulip poplar honey and leave it on your shelf 3 years from now, it still won't crystallize.
So Ernie, you've got tulip poplar blooming now. I'm about 10, maybe 12 miles east of you, and our tulip poplars are not blooming yet. We're probably a week away.
I'm well protected down underneath the hill and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You've got these micro environments that you might see it, and 10 miles away, you know, I haven't seen a drop of rain.
I have a lot of tulip poplar and it's blooming now, but there's a lot of bush honeysuckle and black locust. The bees like the bush honeysuckle and black locust. They never touch the tulip poplar.
I only have 1 yard that I get it most years, and I don't know what it is, you know, but I always
that too. It's what's growing in that local environment. And it's only some years sometimes.
Yeah, that's what they say. And they say the bees bees will forage as close to the hive as they need to, right? So if there's something that they like within a half a mile and the tulip poplar's a mile away, they're not going after it. They're the most efficient foragers out there in the world. Yes. I get time. Wait, we're good.
The honey
This is what I look forward to every month.
The honey dome you speak of, is
Yeah.
that in a frame where you have like a rainbow
Yeah.
of honey?
Yeah.
So you gotta keep that above the
Correct.
super.
Yeah.
But the frame it's not one frame, it's a lot of them. It's like 6 or 8 of those frames have this honey dome on this super, and you put another super on top of it. There's nothing going to go up there.
Okay.
So you have to George said earlier, you have to under super
Underneath where that dome
below
is.
the dome.
But it's on multiple frames. So if you look frame, and on the top of the frame, there's an inch of capped honey along all the top of the frames. They may not move above it.
Right.
So you want to bring the supers below that. It can be. It usually not in the brood box, but it can be. If your hive is small they may decide that they're gonna be okay in one brood box and not work above it. So you just have to,
Then do you undershoot on?
I sometimes will move brood up. Or try to move brood up higher in the hive, because if you move brood up higher in the hive, then they'll go up higher in the hive and work that box. So, or under super, or you have to experiment a little bit, you know. Good question.
So that if I understand you right, it makes sense to put your super, say you're gonna put two supers on, you got one on now, put that second super underneath the.
Yeah.
Underneath.
You can under, you know, it's talking about whether or not when you add a second super, do you over super or under super? I think you could do both. I mean, I think it's safer to under super, right? Because, you know, the bees are going to more likely sort of work that box. Now, if that top box isn't capped, you probably can over super. But if you over super and 3 days later that box is still pretty light, then move it underneath. I generally under super. So if I'm adding another super to a hive that already has a super, I'm generally putting that super under the one that's already.
Yeah, I never thought, I always just put them on top. That makes sense what you're saying.
Again, you can put it on top, and if it's filled, it's fine. They haven't decided that they have a top, the honey dome in there.
I don't take a whole super off and extract. I usually take a frame or two out
Sure.
at a time, and load in some drawn.
And that's one way to break up the honey dome. It's like, okay, let's take a couple of the frames out, extract them, and put them back in, and then put some blanks on top. Yeah. So you may not be seeing it.
You get your first box full, you add it underneath it?
Generally. Underneath. Again, if they haven't decided they have a top of the hive, it doesn't matter. But if they started to cap, you know, and you put another one over a cap box, they may not go.
I already have two caps.
You can checkerboard it.
You can checkerboard too. Like you can take some. Good point. You can take some of that capped off, move it up, put some blanks in there, and put some blanks above. Yeah, that's another option. That
You can stagger the boxes too.
You can stagger boxes. Yeah, just be. You know, the point is, if you put a super on and they're ignoring it, just be mindful that may be why they're ignoring it.
And checkerboarding, by the way, is really good if you have blank frames that need to be drawn out. Never put them all together. Put a blank, a new one in with an old one, new one, old one, new one, old one. That's checkerboarding. And they will tend to draw out the comb on it because they're already up there.
When I do that, they just draw the previously drawn one double wide, and then I get a huge one and an empty one, a huge one.
Yeah. If you put it next to a cat one, they won't go wide. But if you put it out next to a uncapped one, then they're just going to take the uncapped one and build it wider.
That's pretty cool, right?
You get some massive honey frames that are like 3 inches thick. You know, oh, this is a heavy frame.
A lot easier to cut that capping off. It's that. Yeah.
What other questions? So no other questions? I think the best thing to do this time of year, like any time of year, is to plant plants, right? So if you're not planting plants, plant plants. If you're not sharing what you know with somebody else, share what you know with somebody else. This should be fun. Share your knowledge, plant plants, have fun. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit. I was told I was going to talk about honey production today. All right, so increasing your honey production, it's all about kind of these 5 things which you could combine into 4 or 3 or expand into 10. But there is number 1, keep the predators out, whether that is mammals like mice and such, or is it hive beetles that Donna has, or is it mites? If you have, how sick is your hive? You know, is it too sick or is it not too sick? You want it in the not too sick realm because every hive is sick. It's just how sick is it? There's a good talk by Don Coates on that. Treating for those pests, increasing your bee space, adding in those supers as you need to add in the supers, giving them more space in the brood box. You might go into the brood box and find I've got like 5 frames of pollen, just heavy frames. You're looking for the honey in there. There's none because it's packed with pollen. Pull some of those frames out. Give them some fresh frames so that there's room for that queen to continue to lay to create more workers. Harvest more frequently.
and then plant, did you mention plants earlier?
I did.
I think so, yeah.
We all need
So
a plan.
put in some plants, and what kind of plants? Those clovers and dandelions and the low, no, trees. That's what you need. If you need something immediately, it's gonna be the low stuff, because you can get, you get clover going quick. Planting a black locust or a tulip poplar, you're gonna be waiting a couple of years before it starts really giving you forage for your bees. So those, the bears, the raccoons in this area, oh, we don't have a problem with bears and raccoons. Wasn't there a black bear seen over in your neck of the woods this week? Yeah, we had, Warren Graham has hives out at Ridley Creek, and I think it was like 5 years ago, a bear came in and just ripped his hives down and had at it. They're obviously looking for the honey, right? They're after the larva. That's where all the good stuff is, the proteins and the fats. We lost a bunch of hives out at Cheslin to raccoons.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. They got trapped, they got ant or something. They got trapped out of there. This man.
What are you supposed to do if you see like an alert that a distant apiary is under attack? What are you supposed to do with your hive if you're like, oh, there is a bear nearby?
Yeah. Number one, keep an eye on it, because just because the bear knocks it over and eats some of the frames, eats some of the larvae out of the frames, doesn't mean you can't put that hive back together and still have a hive that's viable. When we had
down.
Yes, put the ratchet straps on there. Maybe you want to put up electric fence. Lots of different things that you can do. Just back to the Cheslin flood that we had a few years ago, we had a hive that was strapped together, and it was about 100 yards downstream. Okay, and I found it Sunday. The flood was Thursday, and as I'm pulling the hive apart, at the very bottom of the hive, there's the mark queen still alive, and several hundred bees, workers in that hive. Did it survive? I don't think it did. I don't think it overwintered, but it certainly was alive a couple weeks later. No, I think that was all about timing.
Strap your hives. That's the best thing you can do
Yes,
against
keep an eye on it.
Keep them tight.
Yeah. Okay, treating for diseases. If you see nosema, you see lots of bee poop on the outside of your hives, you might have a problem. Do your mic counts, mic checks. And if you walk into a hive that was doing really well last week and you open it up and there's like a few bees in there, and what are they doing? They're just sucking all the honey out and there's nothing coming in. Well, that hive probably absconded. It probably said, I don't like you here. I don't like the rent. I don't like the beekeeper. I don't like the proprietor. It's too far to get to McDonald's or whatever, and they abscond, they go somewhere else. And that's just like a swarm. That's bad for potentially your neighbors, or the neighbor's attic, or the shed, or the, underneath the decking, or wherever they happen to set up. That could be all bad. All right, more space, but it's going to be a balanced amount of space. If you, as George mentioned, you've got this little cluster of bees down in here in the brood box, and you put 5 supers up there. Number one, they're not going to do much with it, but more importantly, you're inviting what? Hive beetles. Small hive beetles can just take over a hive when you've got too much space. You can also, lots of other bad things can happen if you give enough or give too much space, but you're trying to play that balancing act. So give them a little bit more space. I harvest every week this time of year. So I'm going into my hives. I find frames that are capped, off they come. A test, I know that there are people out here in the club that pull a frame, it's totally uncapped, they shake it. If their feet aren't wet, they're pulling that frame. Which means when I say they shake it, they shake that frame, and you got if that honey, if it's truly honey, it won't just shake out of the frame because it's very dense, very thick. When it's really light and it's just water all over, or not water, but sugar, honey, all over the floor or all over the table or my boots, that means it's not quite honey yet. Paul, you were gonna have a comment about that?
I was admitting to it.
Okay. I know Tom McKinney does that. I know that Keith Jardine does that. There's a lot of people that do it. I do it occasionally, but I do try to have quite a bit of capped honey on there first.
Do you have fully capped frames now or partially?
Partially. Yeah, I've got some that are like 70 or 80% capped.
What percentage do you then pull?
Depends on how I feel on any particular day. You know, as I'm going through, it's like, okay, or if I've got the honey dome problem, which I ran into. Actually, I think about it. I had one of the George's Keepers hives that down in the spacer box was completely full of honey and probably 70% capped. So that honey dome was keeping the bees from going up into the top boxes. I pulled all 5 of those frames and I put drawn comb in there, and I could see the hive weight going up significantly on my brood binders.
If you're gonna use the hunt, you know, if you're gonna extract and you're gonna use it or someone's gonna use it right away, then you don't have to worry about fermenting, right? Fermentation only takes time and generally a couple months. So again, it just depends on what your plan is with that honey too.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one method of extracting your honey. This is the crush and strain. This is the traditional method. You know, you've got this honeycomb, you crush it, you have a cheesecloth, and you're collecting the honey from underneath the drippings. Yeah, it's messy. But if you're a new beekeeper and you've got a hive and you're just going to do one frame, I don't want to go find an extractor. I don't want to take the time and effort. I don't want to spend the money to buy an extractor. So why don't I just crush this honeycomb and there's the honey. I'm only looking for a couple of pounds for me. That's not a bad method. Like I said, it's a little messy, but honey cleans up. You just kind of lick your hands off and you're fine. Please don't do that if you're extracting to give to other people. So the more traditional method or non-traditional, more common method today is I've got the honey capping knife, I've got a frame, I'm cutting the cappings off, throwing the frames into the extractor, I'm manually spinning that sucker and flipping the frames around because I can only extract on one side at a time, and you know, because I bought the cheap extractor. Yeah, it works. Absolutely. Last few years, that's exactly what I was doing. I hand cranked them all. I had flipped every frame every time, and it works. And last year, for that method, I did 550 pounds of honey. 2 years ago, it was 400 pounds of honey. This is from small amounts of hives. You know, like 4 or 5 hives. That's not bad. I think Paul actually, what are you, about 125 pounds per hive?
I think usually.
Yeah. You know, so, you know, the average in Chester County is about 35 pounds per hive.
Those guys are pulling every week, right? I mean, I mean, if you want to maximize as Mark said, just go in there, pull a couple frames that are mainly capped, extract them, and then the same day put those frames back in the hive, right? And they'll just keep filling them up. So if you really want to maximize your
I like the change in flavors through the season.
Yeah, and you get to see the different colors and flavors for sure.
Kind of the art too. Yeah.
So if you're using an extractor, is there like a ton of honey that's getting like wasted that's stuck in it, or does it actually, like, I know very little about this.
It hits the sides of that stainless steel tank and it goes down and out.
So if I have one hive,
Right.
and someone actually gave me a brand new extractor, so like as a gift, so.
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited to use it, but I feel like it's kind of crazy for somebody who. It's not? Okay, because I felt like that seems a little too.
Spatula at the end and just let it all.
Okay, so that'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you want to do it.
Can you do one frame? Like, does that seem?
Oh, no.
So how many frames do you do when you do that?
Depends on the size. Like this extractor here is a 3-frame,
Okay,
or actually, that's a 4-frame extractor.
okay, so I have to see what I have.
Yeah. So, you work with what you got. If
Yeah.
all you have is 1 frame to do, crush it and
Okay.
drain it. That's gonna be easier than trying, because if you put 1 frame in an extractor.
It seems like ridiculous.
It'll be on its side.
Okay.
At least they have to be balanced.
Okay.
So on that one, the 4-frame, you need to have at least 2
Okay.
to keep it balanced. And it can't be a deep and a medium, because again, you get that unbalanced kind of
So
feel.
I'd be better off not using the extractor this year, using it next year when we.
I use it. If you have 2 frames.
I mean, I'm excited because my friend got it for me, so like, I wanna try it, but.
The other exciting thing, after you're done, you're doing your extraction, and when you're done.
Yeah.
You take that extractor outside, lay it on its side, and you'll know if there's a honey flow on.
Okay.
Okay, because if there's a honey flow on, you'll get a few bees. If there is not a honey flow or nectar flow, within 10 minutes, that thing will just be coated with bees. You come back the next day and run your hand along the inside of it, and where it was just totally covered with honey and sticky, it's like smooth and clean. They will clean.
And then you have an
that sucker
extractor party, like you invite your friends and neighbors and you pour them some wine and you have them.
Well,
all
anyone's welcome to come use it, I don't even know how to put it together, so for real.
That's the old manual extractor. You're just sitting there cranking and spinning and.
How long do you spin it for each side?
Yes. It depends on the extractor. With a tangential, which is the one where here's the center here, you do that. With the manual one, I would do it for 30 to 40 seconds and then pull it out, spin it around, do it another 30, 40 seconds, pull it out. Actually, on the first pull out, I'm looking to see where I didn't cut. I'll go back and I've cut all those, turn it around, spin it out, do it again. So I'm turning it 4 times.
So you only spin it for 30 seconds.
30,
You'll
30,
feel
45
it,
seconds.
you'll know the day, you'll know
I don't,
exactly.
I didn't get one, a manual one. I did get a regular one. I spin it for.
Well, so there's 2 ways, there's radial and there's tangential.
I have the one that's far left.
If they look radial like spokes on a wheel, then you have to spin that for 10 or 15 minutes to get that out of there.
When they're tangential, man, they just.
Depends on the temperature.
The other thing that makes a difference is the temperature. The speed, yes, but more important is the temperature. If you're spinning out honey and it's 75 degrees, you're gonna spin a lot longer than if it's 90.
You also have to make sure that the honey is being forced out rather than, in other words, the way those cells are made, they go down.
Yeah.
So if you have that going in backwards, it's gonna push the honey in.
Be there all
Yeah,
day.
you put the ear on that end, so if that's reversed, you could be spinning all day and still, that's a 6-pound frame still.
I think you have to also cut that capping off too.
We
You can
recommend
do that for a long time.
And I will also say that there are some methods where you take a roller that has little pins in it, and
That's what I did.
yeah, that does not work as well as using the fork and really cut the cappings off. Because with that little pinhole, the honey has to come through that little tiny hole, so that will take a lot longer for the honey to come out.
And not all frames are the same way. So when you start to spin, especially electric, it'll start doing this, start it low, let it balance out, and balance it
Yeah.
off.
And you might have to pull a frame, and like I said, I go through the second time and I do that second power.
I like the fact that if I don't get all the honey out, I put it back on the hive and they're gonna take it out.
Yes.
So it's not wasted.
Not wasted, yeah, absolutely. It's never a waste.
You got
Yeah.
one question?
If I'm going to be pulling some frames out on a weekly basis, and I don't have enough, what's the best way to store them while I'm waiting?
So,
Not enough to put in-
I have a freezer, I have a refrigerator out in the garage that has a freezer compartment. I've taken a Sawzall and cut part of the door, so the door, the top door is like this wide, and it has a little slot for whatever went into the, I cut that whole thing off. And so the frames fit perfectly right into the freezer. So I just pulled out 30 frames out of that regular top of a freezer. So I always just slam them right in the freezer, because I'm, like you said, I don't want to extract
You have to
3
let it
frames.
warm up
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and so you take, I have the totes, the black plastic totes with a little gizmo that I built inside, basically a hive body, and I can put them in, throw them out in the sun, and within less than 24 hours, they're hot and ready to extract. Yeah.
I also use the old like igloo coolers. They don't fit perfectly on what you're doing, but they can get used ones. And I put them all in there, close them up, put a strap on them, and then put them away. And I put them out in the sun for a few minutes.
So the only problem with that is if you've got hive beetles or wax moth larvae in those frames that you're putting off to the side, that's the reason I like to freeze them, because that will kill anything. If they're alive and you've got those honey frames in there, they will start to multiply. And you could come back, a week later, open up that cooler and go, ooh.
Yeah, I try to extract within at most 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours. Like if I'll pull frames, I'll leave them like covered in a box in the basement for 48 or 72 hours and generally feel okay.
Yeah.
But there's beetles and wax moth in every hive. So if you've left some eggs on those honey frames and you leave them in the basement for longer than 72 hours, you may come back and have a mess. Yeah, but I generally find 72 hours is usually okay to do that, assuming that you're not having an active infestation going on when you pull your frame.
So
but it always extracts best if you always extracts best if you pull and extract on the same day. That's ideal because it's warm, it spins out really quick. You get the frames right back on the hive and you're done. So that's always ideal.
So is it legitimate to extract honey from frames that have larvae in it? Yes, so it is or isn't. According to the Pennsylvania state guidelines, the law, no. If it's got larvae in it, you're not supposed to extract the honey out of it. Now, have I been known to go in and see, there's a patch of drone larvae in the middle of and cut all that out and then extract? I might have done that once or in the past, but I really don't do that anymore. I used to like 5 years ago. Yes, sir.
And how would you identify if you had 2 frames and one of them was made by the bees, it's honey, the other one's sugar water? How can you tell the difference from looking at the frames?
Well, if you're feeding and it's sugar water, you leave it all for the bees. You're not going to pull anything because you're not going to, other than it's like, wow, this really tastes like sugar water, but it could also be black locust, because some of that really light nectar that's coming in right now is, I've had people tell me, oh, that's just sugar water. That's not, it's like, no, that's black locust. I haven't fed my bees since the winter.
But how do you know whether they, as you get going in the spring, if there was a little sugar water
You don't.
But you know what you fed them. You know when you fed them. You know when you fed them sugar water. You know that maybe you put on a feeder in September, October. If you come out of winter with, 50 pounds of honey, how much of that is actually honey? You have to go back and look how much you fed, how much they took. So if I put on 50 pounds of feed in October, and you're looking at 50 pounds of honey in April, I would say some of that's probably sugar water. Is it bad? No, it's not going to hurt anything. But is it truly honey? Yeah, that's arguable. All right, Paul.
I was just gonna say, sometimes in the winter, you get a dead out.
Oh, yeah.
In December, you have 50 pounds of honey in your hive, and that's all sugar water. You have to wait till the spring, spin it all out. Fill those hives up again, and then throw that stuff away or put it in. Yeah, just throw that stuff in.
You can either throw it away, you can put it out for them to feed on.
You know, it's up to you.
They just put it back.
Yeah, well, but they'll tend to feed on it more than they will store it.
Yeah.
You know, especially this year when we had all that it got nice and warm and it got cold again. I had put out a lot of feed. You know, I pulled off of hives and it was mostly fondant that I was pulling out. And they're feeding on the fondant. Are they stacking that into the sugar, into the honey frames? No, because they're eating. Yeah. All right. Another extraction method is comb honey. So you're doing this cut comb. Lots of different ways of doing cut comb. There's the hog half combs. There's the Ross rounds. This is the more traditional method where you actually have basically a blank frame, a foundationless frame, and they've drawn all that honeycomb in and filled it with honey, and now it's being cut out, and they're using a wire over there in the far left to cut the comb into little cubes, but squares, and it gets, you know, you can do it the newfangled way with a cookie press. Square cookie. Okay, now they're doing some kind of a cutter, or you can just use a knife, just cut it. Yeah.
Or do they need like a little bit of starter frame to get started, or will they just do that on a blank frame?
Yes, some bees are a little more
slow, like mine.
Some bees are slower than others.
Special, my bees are special.
Special bees, Donna. Donna's waiting 4 years for her bees.
They were great. Now they just suck.
Donna, you can buy thin comb.
Thin
comb for making cut.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
You just attach a half inch at the top. And draw the rest out.
Thank you, because I should have asked anybody know, because I've never done it. I've always used the half hog and the Ross rounds.
Ike sells the thin comb.
It's just
thin
wax,
foundation.
right?
It's wax, but it's like you can see through it.
Is it edible?
Yeah.
Like a
no,
okay.
it's as edible as wax. It's
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
it's
the
beeswax.
source.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah,
I've taken just a regular honey frame, sectioned it into 3 sections without any wax, and they build it right in, no problem. And then you just cut those squares right out.
right. Again, it depends on the bees. I've put frames like that in there, come back 4 or 5 weeks later, this time of year, and they're still untouched. You know, some bees.
Seems my bees made it down to your yard.
And then you've got the flow hive, which is, just as a note, I know there's a couple of people here that are anybody using flow hives? Howard's got some. Okay, well, it's, if you listen to what the marketing says, this is the easy way of doing beekeeping and honey production. And, you know, basically what it is this plastic frame. And when you turn the key, it shifts every other half cell down, and which cuts the wax, and it all goes down in the middle, down and out the spout. The problem is it doesn't change the fact that you have to manage your bees. You know, you have to get that flow hive off. You have to go into the brood box and do standard management techniques. I need to check for mites. I need to make sure that I've got a queen. Is she laying well? Do I have diseases? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the marketing makes it seem like you don't have to do that. That's just patently false. But it is nice to go into a hive, pop it out, you know, and this is another thing they don't tell you in the marketing materials, is you actually need to pull those honey frames out before you just turn the key and start extracting, because you don't know if they're capped. You know, and so here I am pulling out a frame, and it's mostly capped. You know, it's probably 50% capped. It's not completely capped. But this was done several years ago, and I was getting ready to go on a trip for 3 or 4 weeks, and I needed to get it out then. And that was because the previous year it was like, oh, look at all of this nectar that's in the frame. I'll just, when I get back, I'll just extract then. I came back and what was like 30 or 40 pounds of honey in there was gone. Every frame was dry. It moved it all down. It emptied out. It was like, oh, that sucks. So then I put in the key, I turn it, and you see the honey is pouring out of the tube right into the bottle. This was I think my second year using them. And what I've done since is I take the top of the mason jar, drill a hole in it, and I take a plastic tube, and put it down through that hole in the mason jar so that I don't get bees coming to harvest what I'm now pouring out their hive. So it keeps it a little, because that first year it's not bad here, but you can see there's like one bee that's flying around. I was constantly pulling bees out of the honey, and it's like this is just stupid. So
What does a flow hive cost roughly?
too much. You can get one used about $150. Get a real flow hive, I think it's like 500.
Just for one box?
For the one box for the honey super, you do the whole thing, I think it's like 800. You can buy the knockoffs. The problem with the knockoffs is you don't know what kind of plastic they're using. And I know the materials are cheap. I've heard you've got one, right?
I just got a knockoff frames.
Yeah. How much?
They were $15 a frame.
$15 a frame. But you just don't really know what you're going to get. So that's the flow hive. And
it's a box of plastic. It's tough to get the bees to use them.
Yeah, what I had to do was what I would do is I'd take my roller of wax and I'd wax the tops of those flow hive frames, and it just entice them to come mess with it. But it'd be like, get it on there, not too, balancing act, not too much, not too little. You don't want to like block all the cells, and then they get attracted to it. I also have done put a super on top with the flow hive underneath, and then rotate them every week. Just kind of getting them to, oh wow, something's changed, and now they're moving up and down through it, and maybe stopping and taking a look. Just doing nice. It is not as easy as they make it seem, but it is a good way for some folks in Australia to get pretty rich. They've done really, really well. That's honestly the reason I'm in beekeeping, is because 10 years ago my wife said, "Hey, we're going to get into beekeeping, okay? And we're going to be a founding member of this flow hive thing." And so we did all that, and she's been in her bee suit 3 times in 10 years. So there you go.
But
Thank you
Carla
all.
is a treasured member of the plant crew.
Yes, treasured member of the plant crew. Exactly.
Every year in the queen community, we're selling queens, and I have people come up and we always ask them what they're going to do with their queen. A lot of them are going to re-queen a hive. Some of them making splits. And a lot of them are just saying they're queenless. Actually, we always ask them this. How do you know? And we don't always get real assuring answers. So the purpose of this was to try to instill a little confidence in people that they know they have a queenless hive. And I want to thank George, because George went over just about everything here.
I suck.
No, it's good. You did good, George.
I got off on a tangent.
You got to remember, if we hear it once, we probably won't remember it, but if we hear it multiple times, we're more likely to pick it up.
All right, this is.
I didn't say this.
No, you didn't. You didn't have to go through this is signs that your hive is queenless. When you go up to the hive, even before you go into it, You may notice that there's a change of behavior in bees. That nice calm hive that you had is now bumping into your forehead. Maybe a lot louder. Instead of being that nice soft purr of the hum of the bees, now you've got a roar. And I've read that you get a whine, which I've never heard. I'm sure that it is there. You also get a lot more foragers on the landing board, which is partly from the fact that now that you don't have as much brood because your queen is gone, a lot of the nurse bees have nothing to do, so they become foragers. But don't mistake the foragers for robbers. You can see a lot of bees activity on your landing board, maybe robbers. But if you're noticing that they're bringing honey in or pollen in, you can be pretty sure that they are not robbers. There is a book out, Mark has mentioned, called Queen Spotting. There's also a website. If you just type in Queen Spotting, it'll take you right to this. The book, which I haven't seen, I believe it's good for you're new to beekeeping and you're having a lot of trouble spotting queens. This has a lot of pictures that you can look, and it's just like a practice. Where's Waldo? Where's the queen? It would help. The other thing is with the queen team, we're constantly going into the hives. One of the things we do all the time is look for queens. We have 20-some boxes, so every time we're out, we go through 20-some hives. And if you want to come out, we post what days we're going to be there. You can come out and get some good experience. It's great hands-on. Actually, if you have your stuff together, you're leaving from here to go to the apiary. One of the signs that you'll see is your brood is slowly dwindling away. You lose all your eggs after the first 3 days. After 9 days, you only have capped brood. After 21 days, you have grown, and then it is all full. One of the things that Georgia talked about was the brood nest, the brood area there. That will, if they have a queen, they have a mated queen that hasn't yet started laying, you'll find that that area, everything else on the frame may be backfilled, but they'll leave that area open. That's a sign that you may well be getting a queen. You also start to see supersedure cells or emerging cells. If it's a case where you lost your queen, it'll be emerging cells. They don't look any different. The supersedure cells are not usually on the bottom, but they can be. The cells, they'll start making a cell right after they lose the queen. It'll take 4 or 5 days for that to happen, which is actually 8 to 10 days when the egg was laid. But that's because one of the things that could help is BMAT, is to really be able to look at something and to be able to tell, okay, well, this happened like this. That's the stage of the brood on that. I know I had a queen 7 days ago. I know I had a queen 9 days ago. Very helpful to drill that into your head to be able to understand what's going on with your queen. The other thing you'll see when you go into the hive is that it's being backfilled everywhere in the brood, across the brood nest. Everything's being filled with
anaphylaxis.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Because you have a lot more foragers, they're bringing in a lot more stuff. So you are going to get them to start to fill the brood nest, fill the space where they would normally put eggs because they don't have a queen anymore. This can also be a sign of a swarm. They will fill the brood nest prior to a swarm as well. So just keep that in mind. And like I did mention about the queen, they don't fill it. 3 weeks after the queen's born, you start to get laying workers. Laying workers once again, they're not easy to get rid of. the picture there depicts what laying workers would look like. They're, because they can't lay fertilized egg, they lay drones in worker cells. So the cells are scattered all over. There's no actual pattern to it. And because the drones in it, they can't really fit in those cells. They get the whole look. And then further on down the line, you'll start to see a lot of drones because that's all the drone layers are producing. But you're talking well over a month before you get to that 6 weeks. Because the queen has lost, there's no more queen pheromone. The queen pheromone is kind of what holds the hive together. So without it, the hive starts to get confused and listless, and you see them. You open the hive, look at it, and they're just kind of like skittering around in the hive in the frame. So there's 2 easy tests you can do to definitely tell whether you have or don't have a queen. One is the cone test. You just take a frame with young larvae on it and eggs. You can put that in. They will make queen cells. They make queen cells. That's telling you that they don't have a queen. Alternately, you can take and if you have a cell or a frame with queen cells on it, you can put that in. If you have a queen, they'll tear them down. If you don't have a queen, they will continue to let that hatch. Your next one? Okay. There is a couple times when you will have a queen that will stop laying. You stop laying in the winter, so you will lose your eggs. She will stop laying if there's in the middle of a dirt, or she'll slow way down. The other reason that the queen won't lay is because there's no food coming in or there's no pollen. If she doesn't have pollen, she won't lay eggs. And if she does, the workers will realize that there's not enough food for them to feed the larvae, and they'll eat the eggs of the larvae. I don't believe there's any other time that she will stop laying, other than if she's injured or sick. Any questions?
Okay. One more time, Charlie, go.
Okay, let me
Here's the other thing that sometimes we do on the queen team is if you drop a frame of foundation in a hive in the brood chamber, and you come back in 2 or 3 days later, and that frame they're drawing out wax, that's a good sign that they're queen, right? If you come back 2 or 3 days later and that frame isn't touched, that's also a sign they're probably. But 85% of the time, you are queen frame.
Yeah.
So buy a queen if you need it.
We will have our queen sale next Saturday. I'm still not sure how many we're going to have. I'll probably post it Monday night.
Good queens.
Good queen. Oh,
What's
yeah.
that price on queens? Do you think about it and get back to
It's the
us?
same as it was last year. How's that?
It's been $30 for
Say
5
30 or
years.
40,
Yeah,
okay.
$30 for years. Question.
If you have like laying workers and you put in eggs and brood and they make a new queen, does that take care of the laying workers, or do you have to like do something to get rid of that?
I don't think that's enough. Like, once you have a laying worker, I did a presentation on this last year. You're gonna have to combine. I can walk you through it if you need help.
Oh, I'm not worried about it. I was just curious.
Usually you have to put in several rounds of frames before you get enough worker brood in there where it's the worker brood pheromone that stops the laying workers, but oftentimes 1 or 2 frames of worker brood isn't enough to stop it. You gotta go back in a week or 2 and add some more brood. And honestly, not to say that you can't fix the problem, but why not make a split and make a new hive, honestly, instead of dumping resources into a laying worker hive. That's life.
Yeah. The pheromone is why the layer worker starts. It takes 3 weeks, because it takes 3 weeks to get rid of all the open brood. So after the open brood is gone, that's when the laying worker will start. And the idea is if you introduce open brood, that pheromone will slow the workers down and they will make a queen, but it's not easy.
Then I know the Queen team's making queens. I know Ed is making cells. There may be other people in this club that are making cells. If you're making cells or queen and they're local stock, please feel free to post it on the website or let people know that you have these cells. And this is the most important thing we do, is try to flood this area with as much local genes as we can, honestly. So please.
But not jeans from my yard.
Not Donna's bees, because her bees are still 4 years trying to figure out how to make some honey, you know? But they'll get there, Donna. I'm sure they'll get there.
Not to go to meeting.
No.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick story. Really, 1 minute. You know, you sit there. I used to sit there and I used to think, like, is some of this stuff real or not real? Is it just? So I went to an apiary this week. I showed up at the apiary, got out of my truck, and all of a sudden I hear a hum. You know what that means, right? Swarm. So I hear this hum, and I look up in the sky, and there's a cloud of bees flying all the way through the sky. So what did I do? This is really cool. I took my smoker and a hive tool, and I start banging. I was like, Lynn Arnold gave a talk last year on tang, and I sat there, I was like, oh, come on, this is a bunch of. But I was like, okay, why not try? So I took my hive tool and my smoker, and I started banging and banging and banging. You know what happened?
It didn't bite you.
Nothing.
What happened?
I'll tell the story.
Nothing.
They came down to the hive.
No.
Yeah, they did.
I tried it.
They came down to the hive, and I couldn't. Within 2 minutes, all these bees come down and on the surface of the face of the hive, and then they walk in. Now, do I know if it was my banging, or do I know that they left and the queen was still in the hive? I don't know, but I swear it was like incredible. So always be open minded. Yeah, they came. I knew exactly what hive they came out of because they came back to the original hive, and they're all on the face. I mean, the face of the hive is totally black with bees. And I keep banging, and within 5 minutes, all the bees are back inside the hive.
Who remembers why that works?
Like,
How long did they stay?
They think it's there's a thunderstorm.
No, I went into the hive, I found the Mark Queen, and I made a split. So the Mark Queen, now was the Mark Queen, was the Mark Queen in that mass of bees that was flying around? I don't know, right? That's the question, but probably, yeah. So they say use a pot and a pan, but a smoker and a hive tool. And it made my year. I was like, okay, I actually believe in tang.
So if you do that, are they gonna just swarm again?
Yeah, they will swarm again. You got it.
Okay, he split them though.
Yeah, so I went back in and I said, I got to figure this out. And then the Mark Queen was there, and I just pulled her out and made a split and took her somewhere else. So I basically
this year?
Just this week.
Just this week.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was like, cool.
Do you have a slide? Who do you want?
I have a video of it
Me.
that's editing right now, so you'll see it eventually.
So the Women's Bee Group is hosting another talk, part of their series. It is May 19th, and it's Dr. I don't know how to say her name. Ritzkoff?
I'll tell you then, on the 19th.
I'll tell you then. Yeah. So does anybody, I don't even know if I've registered for this one. So you have to register for these. If you register for the event, it's free if you're a member, and you will get sent a link. And then I believe you will get sent a reminder, and then you get to watch a cool presentation. I was gonna say, we have a couple more, right?
Look right down in front of you.
I can look right in front of it. All right. I'm not gonna read all this. Everybody can read this or go to the website and see. I believe we have these posted on the website, June 25th. And all of our talks are at 7 o'clock at night?
Bro, good.
Actually, the pro behind former pro, and it's finally.
Okay, cool.
Roxanne and Apogard. So we've got some light stuff coming on. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Very good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're just trying to get more education out there about different mic products. I know y'all have a lot of questions and maybe
Hear from the experts.
questions about it. So we thought, why not bring in the folks that make it, that you can grill them.
So if you guys haven't joined the Women's Bee Group, you can join the Women's Bee Group. You don't have to be part of the Women's Bee Group to join the talks and the links. So the Women's Bee Group is Sheena, myself, and Carissa. And then we have this one silent partner in the background. I'm totally going to out her because she hates when I do this. Yasmin comes up with a lot of these ideas for us, and then we make them happen. So yeah, they put some good stuff out. I actually was trying to get 2 mushroom foraging walks. I had the dates lined up. I was going to do one the end of May and I was gonna do one in October. And then the guy that I had assigned to take us on a hike backed out and said now the dates aren't available. So I'm trying to get, is Steve still a member? Armalong?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get Steve to take the place of this guy. Steve is like a mushroom foraging guide. If anybody's interested in mushroom foraging, I'm still trying to get that on the agenda for the Women's Bee Group and anybody that wants to join to go on these walks. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background that isn't ready yet, but we do have ideas.
Her story, Historic Sugartown, we have 2 more slots, 3 afternoon slots, 2 shifts, 9:30 to 2 to 1 for we need help. Desperately need help. A lot of people I know are concerned because like, well, I'm busy. I get a lot of that. I'm busy. I completely understand. I got 5 kids. I'm busy. But what I can tell you is if you can slot 1 or 2 slots a year, or if you have a standing event that you go to, we'd appreciate any help we can get. Any type of commitment would be really helpful.
David, can I say one thing?
Yes.
As one of the Women's Bee Group thing, I was talking to Mark about this one event that is coming up. It is like the timeline of women in America. It would be really great if some of us women beekeepers, I've actually signed up for the morning shift. It would be great if we could get the Women's Bee Group, at least chair people, to go and work it, and any other female beekeepers that we haven't.
Maybe before my wedding.
Well, that's exactly what I said to
You do a
Mark.
lot,
It's
Gina.
the day before your wedding, so not you.
It's everything's in there.
People understand, people understand, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so there'll be some ladies for that event. If possible. You sign up for a shift, please go on the website and look for volunteers, guys. And then the Malvern perennial plant in Bird Park. This one's pretty easy. I did it last year. You set the table. It's only 2 hours long. It's a nice little event right downtown Melbourne. I did it last year. I just can't do it this year.
And if you're legal to sell honey, both of these events, you could bring honey to sell.
Or wax or
whatever.
Point.
Bee products.
May 17th?
Yes.
Yeah, and which is also the same day that we have one of our beginners courses up at Bonsville Mill, which I would normally be doing.
And you get a shirt.
Yes. Well, it's just we're outreach, but engagement. We engage the public, so that's why we have engagement on here. It's a wonderful polo shirt. It's sweat wicking. It's nice to eat. So get the shirt too.
Would we just show up at 9:30 and?
If you want to register, you want to sign up
first
on the website, and then show up at 9:30, and we'll have it. I will have set up the table early that morning and the tent, so it'll be ready for you to show up. We'll also have the education frames, and we'll also have some prints of historical people in bee garb, and the lady out there with her pots and pans hanging down a hive that was a wind drawing.
If we have 2 events on the same day, do we have 2 tents?
You don't need a tent for the perennial event that's underneath the.
We do have 2 tents, right?
I do have a second tent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also have a tablecloth for
the Malvern event. You still.
Okay.
It's in that.
We have observation hives for both.
I will bring an observation hive to the Malvern event. If somebody else has an observation hive to bring, George, I know you've got a couple of. So
I have one.
Here's a plug: is George has made these single deep frame observation hives. So you pull a frame out of your hive, you drop it in, close it up, and off you go with it. It weighs what, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, as opposed to what I used to carry out would be like a nuke with an observation window above, and that sucker there were times it was 40 or 50 pounds. Trying to haul it out into a site was unpleasant.
Can I be not blunt for a second? Or be blunt for a second? Can I please? Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir because we have 500 or 600 members and I have 40 people in the audience here. But tell me how I can get more people to help out to do this, honestly. Like, is it the website? Is it the messaging's not clear? Like, how
how do I do it? I'm open to feedback, and I don't mean to say this, but I'm saying it because we don't know what to do, honestly, at this point. So we're open to ideas. We got nice shirts, but
As we've said all along, anybody in this room knows more about beekeeping than Joe Q. Public.
The events are fun. I'm not gonna lie, they are
and
fun.
I'm not meaning to be, but I'm want to hear ideas of how we can. What do we need to do what do we need to do?
I know I got an email about like the community engagement meeting. It was like 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I'm still at work at that point. So
You don't have to go to the meeting.
no, I know, but I mean like that's part of the
That's part of the
issue.
challenge,
It's
yeah.
like timing, you know, things like that. And maybe making, I think if people are possibly looking at this and saying, oh, I could be there from 9 to 11, but 9 to 1 is too much. And, you know, I know we need the whole thing covered, but shorter shifts might get more people to be able to be there.
You can call a friend and say, hey, listen, I'll cover 2 hours of that shift and you cover the other 2 hours. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, the event starts at 10. I leave at 9:30 for any setup.
Yeah.
Just
another thought, I mean, because we're banging our head a little bit.
What these events are, what you're actually doing there.
There's 2 types of events. There's meet and greets. Anybody can do this. You're sitting behind a tent, you're in the tent, you're at a table. There's plenty of stuff in front of you to educate the people that are asking questions. You're talking about beekeeping. There's speaking engagements where we're getting in front of a room and we're showing slides, we're having conversations. That's a little bit more involved. I don't expect everybody to sign up for those right away. And there's some training involved, which I'm more than happy to provide. So the meet and greets, which are pretty much this one has a little bit of a history to it, but again, it's not that complicated. It's meet and greet. You're just going and talking about beekeeping and having a conversation with people there.
as they come by.
As they come by. They're gonna get some questions. Oh, tell me about beekeeping. Oh, but what's a queen? You're gonna get those questions. So how's the queen work? How often does the hive dive and relit? I mean, the questions are all over the map. And it's for beginner beekeepers. If you've been doing it for a year or even half a year, you're going to know more than the majority of the public out
there. We've invested in the material. We have observation hive. We have frames. We have shirts. We have coloring books. We have. Anyways, so is it not clear? Is it? I don't know. I'm just stuck on this one a little bit because it's not the first time we've.
I don't know if I just didn't notice it, but for me, I was like, oh, I would do that. But it's next weekend and I have something going on next weekend. So I don't know if I just didn't see you guys talk about it earlier. But for me, I'm like, oh, it's too short notice.
That's fine.
So I don't know if that's part of it.
If you're on the site, just go to the calendar. Look for events. We're pink as our color.
And
I think the website refresh will hopefully help some of this, like make it more intuitive, like where to find this stuff. So you can hit one button or it's clearer. So we know that there's a website issue.
And if we're covered, if we have full coverage and you're like, I just want to go anyway, please, by all means, show up. More people, the better.
Admittedly, I don't check the website really hardly ever, and that's not a fault of the website. I'm just, there's enough on my plate that I'm not going looking for things. I also don't always pay attention to email, so I say these things like these are my disclaimers here. But how is there sort of a general time frame ahead of an event where an email might get sent?
We don't know. We're trying to get these organizations to get to us sooner. There'll be times where we get an email like a week before.
Oh, no. I got one last year from the French school in Westchester. Yeah. Can you come today?
It's that bad.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Well, that's what the answer no was.
Yeah. Yes, and I took an observation hive and talked to about 60 or 70 kids. Great.
Can I ask one question? If we were to change the volunteer program to activities program, like coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people were like, geez, I just want to be around people. And they were looking for activities to do. I think there's this connotation with volunteer that you have to work. But if we say these are activity opportunities, would it seem more enticing? That's what I thought, yeah. I really think if we change it to activities.
So, but how many people are typically at this? So I'm a newbie. So I would not feel comfortable, and Bruce, I'm sitting here, it's like, well, I could do something, but I don't wanna be the one person there.
You
Is
be
it
alone.
typically a couple,
like
two
that.
or three?
2 or 3 people.
Mhm.
Speaking is the only time where it's only one. But again, I'm not gonna throw you, if you're like, oh, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna put you out there. Again, I train people for that.
But I think I did one of these when I ran you too, and it's so much fun. It was fun.
It is fun.
Can I sign up somewhere to be on a list where you, when you get them, you email?
Community engagement.
There is, it's out
Yes.
there? Okay.
Join. You can, any questions you have, you come and talk to me about it. And I understand, listen, we're all busy. Like, I'll even be happy if someone's like, look, I do 2 engagements, two events a year, I'm doing that. Great. Mark does the beer gardens at Sugartown all the time. I'm doing like, I do Kennett Square, the Kennett Square STEM event every year. So like, whatever, I always stick to certain events, that's fine. If you have like your event and you give a contact, like, well, I engage with the school and they want us there and every year I'm gonna do that. Awesome.
So somewhere on our website, you can go sign up to get the email.
I love that. Somewhere on our website?
Yeah, no,
My contact
It's gonna get better, that's
It's
all I
gonna
can say.
get, it's gonna get better.
Up there.
If there are some that are, every year kind of thing, if you can maybe separate it geography wise, because I just looked to see, for me to do Sugartown, it's an hour from my house.
Yeah, right.
And that starts becoming,
I understand.
maybe
But
not.
for you, the Unionville Fair
Yeah,
would be
right, so,
nice.
so maybe
Yeah.
somewhere in there, if there are things that that you do every year, say, in this part of the county, we have these 5 things, this part of the county, we have these 4 things,
Yeah.
so that allows me to.
We're trying to get ahead of it. It's just, it's not as organized as I'd like it to be, and we're still trying to work that out.
Not to be defensive, because that's not who I am, but I'm venting a little bit. Sorry, I'm preaching to the audience, but we did try this where we took the zip code of where the event was and emailed people who live within 5 or 10 miles of that location, and we got
0.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to the idea, but this is an idea that we tried and we didn't get the response that I was hoping for. And again, we all own this, right? But I'm just, again, saying this because we get 40, 50 events speaking a year. We're trying to say yes, but.
Can I tell you the most rewarding part of it? I work with kids a lot. I do scouts. I've got 5 kids. I do schools. I can't tell you the kind of enthusiasm for beekeeping. I can't tell you, even with adults, it is the most rewarding thing in the world. So when you start engaging people and educating them, they're thanking you a million times over because you gave them some knowledge about nature, about what's around us. And you're making them aware of what we have and what we offer. This is a great club. Not many like it. I looked across all the Northeast, all the different websites. We are very unique. And you should be proud of that. This is a great club. So we need to tell the public about it.
It's hard.
What we probably do is make sure we get it every year list events that are going to be happening, like say January, February, March, and then each month, and again, to update it. Because then we can look in January and say, oh, March 5th, I can do it.
Try. Bob business again. We get emails like 2 weeks before the event.
But you're saying
Yeah,
you
we
have
do.
about like 50 events, even if they're just generic.
Yeah.
And
We try.
No, we hear you. Like
Mark
reminders
puts a lot
is
of events
helpful.
on the
You want to show us where you find it now, Mark?
Yeah, if you go to the events calendar, you can see the ones in pink. If you change this and search for, I come down here and say community engagement and search. And so now you can see there were 3 that were on the calendar. If I go to the list format, I can go, actually I can do this and change it to future. And now this is everything that's on the calendar so far this year.
This one's a lot of fun. I really have a lot of fun with beer garden. Music, food, bring your kids. I mean, seriously, it's a lot of fun. Go to that one. These community fairs are fun. But again, you'll have a good time.
Is there a map view?
You don't have that.
But no, thank you all for your thoughts on this because
appreciate
we're continuing to try to figure this out, honestly.
Just a comment as somebody brand new to the club.
Absolutely.
I
am really impressed with how dynamic this club is. You just seem to offer so many different things, so get the word out, right? You should be proud of what you're doing.
Thank you a lot.
Yeah.
It's the same 20 people, which is
No, I
a challenge, which is a challenge with any volunteer organization. And all I'm standing up here is asking for some help.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. But thank you for recognizing that.
It seems like a very worthwhile club, so.
Thank you.
What if you guys did something akin to your apprentice program, but it's more community outreach where there's a buddy?
Oh, that's a
There's
good
help
idea.
with it, like buy down the fear of the unknown and I don't want to get in over my head. I don't want to drop the ball. Just you do a buddy thing and then someone's like, okay, all right, I got help.
Yeah,
Hang out
I'd
with
be.
Dana or Mark.
Whatever. So next Friday, our meeting will be at Historic Sugartown. What time? Say 4:00.
4:30.
4:30. At Historic Sugartown. If you can't make it, there will be a Zoom link. I completely understand.
Yes.
Nobody likes more emails, but honestly, I don't go on the website unless something in an email or text or something drew me there. So I would suggest you do more non-website communications. I know you do a lot of it.
Emails that came back were interesting. Political emails. I kid you not. Asking me, why aren't you involved in politics? I'm like, did you sign up for a beekeeping group or a political group? I'm not kidding. So I will do emails, but the when I got back was like, who are you? Why are you contacting me? I'm like, what did I get myself into? I sent out an email.
Oh, you're going to get some of that, but
it's really interesting.
I think it'd be a little bit better if you like overdid it rather than underdid it. It's
And have the title will be like CCBA volunteer opportunity.
Right.
Something like that.
Activity opportunities.
Activity, do an activity
Fun
with
opportunities.
Damon.
Fun activities.
George not involved.
Damon.
When you send out the email, can you have all the emails start with CCBA? Like that, the email, the newsletter, and all that's all was newsletter team, and I'm like, do I open it or do I leave it alone?
Mine doesn't come from me, it comes from CCBA. So it'll say like, I forget what it says, it doesn't come directly from me. It comes from a website, it says like, community outreach events, I usually put like community outreach, or now I'm gonna put activity.
That's good feedback, that we should put CCBA as the first.
But I think I think I remember the last time I said it was like CCBA community outreach. I always put that in the subjects.
Yeah, we have to manually enter that every email we send y'all, so sometimes.
Yeah, it gets a little bit hectic.
We're trying.
All right, cool. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to vent for 5 minutes and with the feedback back. We're looking to make it better.
I gave a quick talk I opened up some beehives for 4 students at a small school. And these are the thank you notes I got back. And I thought were very cute, so I told them I'd share them. This Thursday, so it's very nice. So this Thursday at 3 p.m. on Guest Channel 29, Fox Station, one of our members, Paul, it starts with an N, complicated last name. Paul is going to be talking about a mic product that he's developed.
3 p.m. Fox News.
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah. We funded his work many, many years ago. Yeah, we did. He got it long before we changed the grant program. He got a grant from us to do some of this work. So cool. We were involved in whatever he's going to be presenting.
I'm from Channel 29.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about it? Does anybody have hive beetles?
Oh, I have 5. Is that a lot?
No. No.
Okay.
That's what I had, 1, and
we
then
got rats
5,
too.
and then 10, then holy moly.
I didn't know
look
if
at
it's
all
like
of the-
any is bad or 5 is like nothing.
So my
I don't-
first 3 years were completely successful. Honey overwintered, no problem. This is great. And then all of a sudden things started slowing down. Last year, I mean, go look at the website. I have had everything happen at my apiary. It's unbelievable. I had a whole meltdown with, I cleaned out a hive, I left it there. They created a hive beetle larvae situation so bad I had to dump it into my fire pit and burn it. Anyway, so last year, Yasmin and I were working my hives and I was noticing my queen wasn't laying, or so I thought. We thought maybe it was a pollen deficiency problem, so I started feeding them pollen. They started getting a little bit better with laying, but what I now realized, because I had Jeff Eckel. Does everybody know who Jeff Eckel is? Their state inspector. I had him come out to my hives and I'm like, you've got to come out and tell me what the heck's going on. I know I have a beetle problem. So right before Jeff got there, I went online and I did a little searching, and I know that cinnamon is a distractant to ants. But what I didn't know is that it also deters hive beetle. And I went out, and every time I did an inspection, I took off my top cover, I sprinkled cinnamon, shook it, bagged it down, and got it into all the seams and cracks. From there, I took the excess, put it on top of my inner cover, did the same thing, got in all the cracks and all the seams. Whatever was excess, I dumped out so it wasn't falling on the bees. Put it back together. Every week I go in, there are less and less hive beetles. I also sprinkle a little bit on the entrance. I'm also big into essential oils, and I have a little bit of wintergreen and water mixed. And at night I'll go out there and I'll spritz the entrance with wintergreen because they can't stand wintergreen. That has been knocking down my beetles. Now, from coming in, how to get rid of them? George did lend me a beetle bottom board. And that is catching some of them and killing them. But the bottom is diatomaceous earth. And then there's these little holes that only the beetles can fit through. Between these two things, and I was actually watching beetles walk into, because this year the queen wasn't laying. I'm like, what's going on? I think the beetles were going in and eating the eggs. Now that I've got the beetle population down, I've got eggs. I've got no problem, and that hive is coming back. Last time I went in, beetles. I mean, and there were just like hundreds. I was going in with a vacuum and sucking up 50 to 70 beetles. It was ridiculous. I was so frustrated. Honestly, God, I'm like, how can I be VP of this club and I can't even get my darn bees to be healthy? But it is, that beetle population is down. I can't imagine it isn't what I'm doing, because this is the first time I'm seeing my beetle populations go down. So I just wanted to share that, because you go to Ollie's or some discount store and get a giant thing of cinnamon. That's all I did. And I just sprinkled it in so the smell of cinnamon is there and then the beetles can't stand it. The bees aren't happy. They don't really like cinnamon either, but that's their home. They're going to stay. Whereas the beetles, that's not their home. They don't have to stay there. So if there's not something attracting them, it's detracting them, and they're not coming in now. So I think, knock on particle board or whatever it is, I think I've got it managed now. But I just wanted to share that with everybody because it's a prevalent problem in this area.
Might end up with cinnamon flavored honey, but
I'm good with that because that's better than zero honey is what I'm getting.
I have a question in the back.
Actually, it's a comment. There's also beneficial nematodes. If anybody's ever heard about those.
I was thinking about trying that.
There's a particular, I'm not sure what species it is that actually kills small hive beetles. You spray it under your hive, keep it wet for a couple of weeks, and then it should really knock it down.
The nematodes are the worms, right?
Parasitic worm, yeah. We use it for termites out in front of our house. So it seems to
But there are
work.
different kinds that sort of are parasitic to different things that you might want to get rid of.
I gotcha.
Where do you get that?
There's Amazon has one company that has, there's a couple others around. I can't think off the top of my head.
I got mine in Southeastern England.
Nematodes. They're little parasitic worms, and they
Also
eat certain
caution
things.
you that beetles do fly, like bees do. So they could be coming in from a mile away.
But anyway, right.
I had a site in Media, didn't ever have honeybees. Put a hive there, and I got some hive beetles. I had kind of a weak hive. They just kept coming, and I swear, me and George, we counted like 10,000 beetles. They did not come from the ground under me. So
that's why I think the cinnamon's helping because they get in the hive. It's a strong scent. They don't like it.
Yeah, the nematode, that's a great thing, especially if you've had a slime out, you had, beetles coming from your hive and burrowing into the ground and reproducing and stuff. Then yeah, I think that's a great thing. But they don't necessarily come from a little patch.
So it's never one thing, it's always a whole bunch of things. Number one, if you have a strong colony, that will help knock down any pests are knocked down by a good strong colony. But then you can help by cinnamon or nematodes or
Wintergreen.
or knocking the weeds down in front of the hive.
Vacuuming.
That company is Arbico Organics, ARBICO.
Okay, Arbico, I looked into that and I got mine from Southeastern Insectaries, which was cheaper than Arbico. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have ones for other types of beetles too, so you can get some for Japanese beetles. You know, each little nematode gives you kind of a specialist for a different type of pest, so.
This was a method that I just happened upon for getting rid of the drone comb. So I've got a medium frame that's in a deep hive, and it's like, okay, I gotta cut that off with my hive tool. It gets all over the place, and I happened to be sitting there I was using a can to kind of rest the frame on, and it was like, I wonder. I slid it over and straight down and cut it right off with the edge of the can. And then another video I haven't made yet is if you set it up on top of a deep nuke or something a little taller, you can slide it all the way down and cut the whole drone comb off in one swoop. Done. And then over to the chicken yard and off they go. But, yeah.
Time for raffle. Let's all thank Donna for putting together an awesome meeting again.